Hello, my name is Marisol Rubio. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the San Francisco Bay Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today I am at Scott's Seafood Restaurant in Jack London Square, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being joined by Dr. Vincent Eugene Allen, who is running for California Insurance Commissioner. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Likewise, we're excited to have you join us today. We're going to go through a few questions just to try to familiarize the voters a little about who you are, why you're running, and before they submit those ballots.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Sounds good. So let's start a little bit with some background information. Just what was your, who's Dr. Allen? What in your background do you think brought you into this space to want to serve and be in public service?
Well, I'm a medical doctor by profession. The main reason that I stepped out to try to become your next insurance commissioner was secondary to the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I saw a lot of people suffering with no real access to care. I didn't see a lot of leadership. I only saw local activity from myself and other guys who believed in the community and came out to step out. Once I saw that the community needed a true leader in time of desperation, which was what the COVID brought, I began to realize I didn't want my impact to be just what I had on a local level with the clinic, that I wanted to do something in a statewide level. And I wanted to be passionate about it, just as I have been in the pandemic along with others in the community. So I chose the area of insurance commissioner. My history is in medicine. I have 7 urgent cares. I'm the largest independently owned franchise and urgent cares in Southern California. And because I know insurance and because I've done so great in the medical community in terms of dealing with the insurer and in dealing with the insurances, I chose this profession to make sure that going forward in the next 4 years that I'm stand up for the people and I choose something to make a difference.
Wonderful. Sounds wonderful. So I'm sure many voters like myself initially are wondering, so what exactly are the roles and responsibilities of an insurance commissioner?
Well, the insurance commissioner are one of those offices that are not well known in the community at this time, mainly because there haven't been a lot of activity in that area. However, the insurance commissioner is the main legislative branch. The California Department of Insurance runs your auto insurance, it runs your homeowners insurance, it runs your liability and casualty, and also malpractice. The insurance commissioner is the overseer of all that entire department. It stops your rates from going. It actually has the ability to cut premiums down to an affordable rate. And it can also bring in new technology that will allow us to stop the disparities that we're seeing in geographical areas or lower socioeconomic class in our society. So the insurance commissioner is a very important role, especially in the area post-pandemic where we need help because everything now is going through the roof.
Absolutely. So thank you for your responses and helping us better understand this position you're running for. We're going to move into some specific issues related to your this position, and in particular, we're going to start out with insuring properties in wildfire zones. According to the Public Agency Risk Management Association, AB 2367, which was backed by the current commissioner and died in the Committee on Insurance, mandated that starting in 2021, insurance would have to renew policies and continue to write new ones in communities that meet state standards for firescaping or home hardening that would be established before the law took effect. The current commissioner also temporarily blocked insurance companies from dropping coverage for more than 325,000 homeowners affected by fires raging across the state and home insurance policies in fire-prone areas. He proposed rules to require companies to offer discounts to homeowners who protect their homes. What will you do to protect businesses and homeowners in fire-prone zones from being dropped or price gouged by insurance companies?
That's an excellent question. Now, thank you. The most important is you want to leverage the government surplus in these. What we're discussing here is the urban wildlife interface. There's $68 billion in government funds that's available for these particular areas. The first thing would be to tap into the CAL FIRE Resilient Grant, which allows money to be given to projects that helps the homeowner mitigate fires, bring in wells, and what he needs to do to make his property more less sustainable to fires. The second one is the CAL FIRE Prevention Grant, which is educational programs on what we should do to stop fires. And then the government should get involved in these areas, which is where we're responsible where these fires start, and do things to stop that. So that's that surplus on my initial part. Now, to deal directly with these denial or these non-renewals, I believe that we need a third-party auditor from the state control area, and that's within the understanding or the control of the California Insurance Commissioner. By placing a third-party auditor, we then can go back and look over the past 10 years to see have there been any discrepancies on why we're denying these individuals, other than they live in a zip code which is a high fire prone area. No, we can do a audit to see are the risk and the deniers substantiated. If not, then all these individuals, and I almost can guarantee all these individuals, should have a fair premium, not a high price premium or the non-renewal, or should they be forced to fall into the fair plan. There needs to be an audit, some type of check and balance in that particular market. Otherwise, what you will see is these bills that's been introduced and blocked, and these saying of doing things, and no one is following through. That community needs help, and I'm here to make sure that I move on that particular area and help.
Wonderful. So would you provide a home hardening grant program to help owners and businesses in fire-prone areas pay for implementing home hardening measures? And if so, what would that look like?
Exactly, and that's what we were speaking. The government has grants, and these grants is what we were speaking of: the CAL FIRE Prevention Grants, the CAL FIRE Resilient Grants. You can direct that money specifically to these individuals to help them mitigate fires in exactly not only their home, but in an entire community. There's money available to help these individuals, and I will work with the governor to secure this money to make sure that we can allow these individuals to live there. I went to school in West Virginia. I had a lot of friends who chose to live away from the pollution and wanted to have a safe environment with their kids. But now they move out there, they buy these homes, and now that's their whole financial backing. That's my future. I put all my money in this house. Now I cannot sell, and I can't get insurance. How unfair is that? The government has a role in this, and there's money available to help these individuals to continue to live the lifestyle and raise their kids like they want to.
Wonderful. So now we're going to move on to a little bit of regarding the overcharging and refunds due to customers during the pandemic. An advocacy group, consumer group, Watchdog, estimates that drivers are still owed more than $5.5 billion, according to their analysis, from overcharges during 2020. Will you order insurance companies to refund the excessive profits they made by overcharging Californians billions of dollars during the COVID pandemic? If so, how and by when during your first year in office?
Again, thank you. That's another excellent question. Fraud and abuse. A lot of individuals don't know that one of the largest arms in the Department of Insurance is the law enforcement branch. I would increase funding for our branch and that law enforcement arm to go after this fraud and abuse, this overcharging and literally taking advantage of people in a time when everyone was suffering. No one had a lot of money at that particular time. I would put money into that fraud and abuse section, and that's my first part, one of my key issues that I have in mind. Increasing the law enforcement arm to go after fraud and abuse, and immediately refund everybody their money back, because we can't wait for that. Based on the pandemic, a lot of people are still recovering. They will need their money now so these individuals can continue to move forward. And if there's been wrongdoing, there should be some fines and penalties regarding this overcharging.
Absolutely. So, bailouts for PG&E. PG&E is an investor-owned utility with publicly traded stock. The state has already bailed out PG&E twice. Should the state be bailing out PG&E while they continue to raise rates to cover their investment losses?
That area needs to be audited. To make these bailouts without providing, PG&G only mitigates fires where their electrical systems are. They do not help the other property owners in that particular area. If we're going to do a bailout for PG&G, we should also have some of this money allocated to the individuals, which is what I'm speaking of, that's also in that area. And the ideal is, if I'm bailing out one, we should bail out two. It should not be this disproportionate conversation that we're having where we're bailing out these individuals with our hard-paying tax dollars, but yet still you are allowing them or allowing the insurance to let us suffer with these higher premiums or non-renewals.
Wonderful. Thank you for that thoughtful response. Will you require transparency from the insurance industry about what fossil fuel companies they are underwriting and investing in? If so, how?
Yes is the answer. One of the things that I believe should happen when we're writing policies, it's just like buying a car. You go there in 30 minutes or an hour, they've sold you this claim or this product, and you believe that you have the best insurance ever. A gentleman gave me an ice cream cone analogy before I got here. So I'm going to give you the ice cream cone analogy. Once there was this thing called a lap band. The lap band was supposed to be this miracle thing to make everyone lose weight. But it required counseling, dieting, testing before you could have surgery. Why can't we implement some product transparency before we have these individuals sign these products, and then when we ask for something, there's all this red tape that we didn't see when it comes to the denial. So I believe there should be some ABC, some introduction to bring about some surety and complete transparency, so when we sign for these products, we know what we're getting.
So, similar to the PG&E question, but more so on the side of insurance companies themselves, when they experience investment losses, will you work to prevent them from passing down those expenses to the consumers through higher premiums?
The answer is yes. Investment losses for an insurance is nothing more than there was an increase in wildfire, which means that's what I'm insuring you for. So my investment means I lost more money because I had to do more payouts. So the answer is unfair for you to recuperate your money by passing those increased premiums on to the marketplace. The ideal is we will not allow that, and I will not allow that, and I will make sure I monitor that. And the wildfires have been since the last 5 years. I'll make sure I monitor that immediately after any fire has been initiated. One of the ones that just happened was the Laguna Niguel fires. I was able to talk to the individuals at that fire and who suffered losses, and their main concern was, would their policy cover their losses? Would they be denied? Or would their insurance premiums go up, even though the fire was not caused by them? So yes, that is an area that I would take on personally to make sure no one suffers from a casualty, nor will we gouge a person, and that's what we speak of, will we take advantage of an individual when he's suffering.
Wonderful. So we're going to move on to health insurance. The pandemic revealed how the healthcare disparities can acutely impact us in a sudden crisis. Research has shown that we spend the most worldwide on healthcare and yet score the lowest on multiple quality of care metrics. More specifically, according to the 2015 National Healthcare Quality and Disparities Reports by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality that analyzes quality in 3 dimensions: type of care, such as preventative or chronic; setting of care, such as nursing homes or hospitals; and clinical areas, such as care for patients with cancer or diabetes. California ranks among the bottom 10 states in the United States. On all measures, California was far away from the benchmark. That is, California has not achieved 50% of the benchmark on 38 measures, which is equivalent to 24%. By race and ethnicities, Latinos' quality of care fell short on 31 measures, which is 34% of those measures, followed by Blacks on 28 measures, which is about 28% of those measures, and Asians on 25 measures, which is about 24%. Doing nothing is not an option, and some would argue that continuing to build on the current structure and the Affordable Care Act will only lead to more cost and healthcare disparities. What can be done to close the gap in access to quality, affordable, and timely health care? And do you believe universal health care is a viable option? If so, how can we make that happen?
So the first thing, which I thank you for these brilliant questions. The first thing is quality of care measured by what we call the HEDIS, Health Education Device. It's an institution or a tool that we use to say what are the quality of care that we use for an environment. What happens is the HEDIS lets you know how bad you are doing. Now, under this quality of care measures, we should be more from the family practice or the base, the root of care, not the specialty level. Do more in making sure that the management of the blood pressure is under control. The management of the diabetes is under control. The initial implementing of treatment for cancer is under control. These measures are where we're falling. They're not following through with the blood pressure. They're not coming down with the blood pressures of the diabetes in time. They're not implementing the appropriate care of cancer in these times. And nor are we're following through as well on the immunization for our children and the measures for weight and obesity. That's what these measures are that we're speaking of now. How do you deal with that? The first thing you do, we should do more for our Medi-Cal program. Most of these individuals are either Medi-Cal or if they're seniors, they're Medicare. What happens in this type of environment, their access to care are limited because of the dynamics. And who suffers? Well, what we talked about, our blacks, our Asian, and our Latinos. Why? One, the medical community, there's already a disparity, so we feel a little left out or not treated fairly. So if that's the case, then the benchmark should be, why aren't we calling? Why aren't we intervening? Why aren't we having our primary doctor make these phone calls? We can have labs and stuff done immediately. We don't have to wait till we get these high numbers. That's why we're so far behind, and we have all these sick individuals. Now what we're doing is using that device to ask for more money from the Medicare program or the state program. Universal care, which is the last question, is not an option. Why would I say that? As a healthcare professional and an individual who owns 7 urgent cares, you do not want to have everyone on a Medi-Cal-based program where doctors now will be disenchanted because that universal product is going to pay the less, so they're not going to have the incentivization they need to see patients because they can feel like they're working for free. And then lastly, the Medi-Cal system or universal care will ultimately be managed by these HMOs who then will also pocket from this universal care and lead us back to a bad situation. There has to be competition in the marketplace. If there's competition between Aetna and Blue Cross and all these individuals, then the marketplace by itself will become fair for everyone else. If it's universal care and there's all one playing field, then the quality of care will then just go down, just like what I've seen in a Medi-Cal or county system where there's a lot of disenchanted individuals working, a lot of civil workers who's there for a life, and there's no motivation to make sure that care for individuals are done. So I do not believe in universal care, and I'm not happy with our current situation, which is our benchmarks associated with care of my community, which is throughout California now.
So you believe that those disparities in quality of care, those measures are related to other issues, but not actually access to care through insurance coverage. Because the reason, I will clarify. The reason being is because on several measures of quality of care worldwide, where in industrialized countries where they have universal health care, they are far outperforming us. So what gives?
Now that's the caveat to the question. Why is there such a disparity? I will tell you, most of the individuals, what we just named, are in the Medi-Cal system, Black, Latino, and Asian. There were no other. The other group that we are not naming are commercial clients. Commercial clients have access to money. Let's just be honest about it. They're paying for insurance. They're paying for a better product. And guess what? the doctors now are going after a commercial product which is going to make more financial gains. So yes, we're going to lose because that's the population we have. And yes, this service that you're already getting in a for-profit environment, which is what America is, if you put that on a universal slate, that's the care that you're going to receive. It's a reflection of what's going to happen if it became all universal. In the marketplace now, where commercial clients are doing better, you get a better product. So why am I saying this? If we put more finances into this pot of underserved, where there's Medi-Cal dollars, then incentivization now is for these guys, and I say this as physicians, to do more because there's more access for this individual. So the disparity here is because the Medicare product doesn't have a lot of influx of funding, then there's not a lot of activity to make sure that this population gets what it needs.
So what's the solution then for that population that is not getting the funding that they need, as well as obviously there's a lot of people who are uninsured, especially immigrant population. How do you propose to addressing that disparity as well?
I love it. I love it. Now we come to the funding. All of a sudden, there's a surplus of money that happened when the pandemic hit. I think there should be funding into the indigent or uninsured population. Let's call that the indigent, which would be our Medi-Cal product, or uninsured, which would be our homeless population. Funding should be here. Now we can now address what we were discussing earlier, which are quality measures. Now, there should be a form required either from the health department standpoint, where we can, if we have the access and name, it's difficult in the homeless population, but we can actually have a group that can do this, where we then have a base that these are must-achieve products. Either you do it yourself or you hire an outside agency to go and make sure that these individuals get this care. Because I'm going to say, from a man from Mississippi, there are things that I didn't even know I needed to have. Some of my male, Latino male, black male, Asian male, they don't know when they're supposed to have a prostate blood test, or the ladies don't know when they're supposed to have a mammogram, or when they're supposed to have a colonoscopy. So I believe if we give a solid sheet and then we put a number behind it. So for X amount of patients, you get $100 as an achievement, and if you do it all, there's a bonus to incentivize the physician or these health care clinics to do these products. I believe that we will take that benchmark up to the number that we need, but most important, we'll provide care for Californians to make sure that no one falls short of overall care, regardless of your financial ability.
Wonderful. Thank you. So insurance discrimination based on education and occupation is a big problem that we're seeing. Insurance companies throughout California are using demographic information such as your zip code, education, and occupation to set customer rates, which often discriminates against underserved communities and communities of color, causing unfair price increases. Will you end these discriminatory prices? And if so, how and when?
I couldn't have asked for better questions. Thank you. One of my key issues I have is to end the disparity in consumer prices associated with geographical area, which is what we're talking about in zip code. In California, they're basing it on zip code and miles driven. And what that does is, if you live in a great zip code and you work nice, you drive like you're a madman, but yet still you have a lower rate than an individual who lived in a less desired area, because that's what their parents can afford, goes to school, does everything correctly. The family waited and did the best they could to buy them the best car right out of high school because they couldn't afford a new one. But yet still, this individual going off to college is paying way more than the other individual who lives in a good area. There's technology that California hadn't allowed. Why? Because our current commissioner and our current administration has not allowed this technology to come in. This technology can now determine who's driving bad, and you can opt into it. and who's driving normal. So if you're driving as a madman, and I won't use that in a bad phrase, but you're driving, you're speeding, you're right up on the person on the freeway, you're texting while you're driving, this technology can let the insurance company know that this is a higher risk. And then I got an individual who just so happened to live in the area where there's gunshot wound and poverty and things that is undesirable, but that's all my family can afford. And I'm still here. I still pay taxes. I still want to make a difference. I probably can come out and be your next president, given the right term. But why am I still struggling in an environment that's already struggling because I can't afford this? I'm working at McDonald's, for God's sakes, or something, just to try to go through school, but they're paying more. This individual who drives normally, doesn't do a lot of texting and driving, can have a better rate if they have the ability to show that. And this technology exists, but we're, on the current administration, that's not even introduced to the public to say that this could happen, and it could happen immediately.
So you're creating sort of an incentivization for people to drive well.
Exactly. And a method to hold you truthful, so you don't say, I'm going to have you pay more because you live in a nice area, but I'm going to make this person pay less because you live in a nice area, but I'm going to have this person pay more because they live in a bad area, but yet still they drive better, whether it's grandmother or whether it's the child just got out of high school, but they drive better, and they drive that freeway, trust me, from where they lived for miles just to get a job on that on our congested freeways. But they shouldn't have to suffer because of where they live.
Absolutely. So insurance companies offer discounts to those who can pay their premiums up front and to those who are willing to pay more out of pocket when they have a deductible to pay. Low-income residents are being repeatedly hit with higher fees for simply being unable to afford that lifestyle. What will you do to make sure the cost and quality of car and home insurance are more equitable across all socioeconomic statuses?
Again, another brilliant question. This society is one of the ones that we have to admit, the rich are always going to do things to maintain that status base. However, this product that we're talking about shouldn't have to have a monetary value. If the premium is $150, the premium is $150. Whether you pay it off now, so now instead of $150, let's say a realistic number, $1,500 annually. And so my premium is $1,500 annually. I have right now the minimum is $15,000 for myself and $30,000 total. So at the end of the day, it's $15,000 annually. So if I have $15,000 to pay right now, I get a discount. So instead of $15,000, I probably pay. I'm sorry, $1,500. I probably pay $1,450. Where now here is the caveat that I think is taking advantage of the community. But since I can do it, now I'm looked at as having a loan. So I'm holding a note. So instead of getting a discount, I pay a little bit more because I'm charging you interest for not paying off my car insurance that was only supposed to be $1,500 because I can't. Remember, I'm working at McDonald's. I can't afford to pay $1,500 up front. Now tell me that's not unfair. And we watch it and look, and no one is saying anything about it, but we know. If it's $1,500, it's $1,500. You shouldn't get a break if I pay early or punish you because you pay late just because you want your money. It should only happen if there's a claim history. If I have multiple claims, it means I have a lot of accident, then of course I'm going to pay more. But you can't hold the rich to say they get away with more, but yet still punish me because I can't afford. That's that disparity we're talking about in this insurance industry.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to protecting consumer information. Insurance companies gather our information and use it to market products to us to determine our insurance rates with no justification provided as to how they set those rates and to sell it to other industries. What are your views on this practice by insurance companies, and what, if anything, will you do to protect our privacy, including medical records, genetic information from being sold by companies like 23andMe?
I believe that that's an illegal practice, and I also believe that because of the lack of of control in that marketplace, that has led to a lot of theft and identity theft and abuse. The first thing should be that we should at least provide a state system, just like we do with the driver's license dynamics, where information for individuals is kept in a confined, unless there's some Russian hack or something like that. We do see those where we can confine the records to a specific machinery, and we'll call that a iCloud, if you will. Now, once we do that, whether it's in your insurance space or whether it's at the DMV, then that record should not be sold. They do try to say by joining our product, they get extra money if they'll sell your information out. I don't think that anyone's information should be sold out, period, just because of what you're seeing in this environment now, especially post-pandemic, where people are doing identity theft, and they're doing identity theft outside of our country. So I believe that it's important that our space or your privacy be kept confidential and should not be sold. I personally would not want to sell my information to anyone, and I would be highly upset if that happened, and I think that same respect I have to the audience.
Absolutely. The state's FAIR program provides insurance to property owners who are denied coverage by private insurance and have no other option. Is the state's FAIR program providing adequate coverage? If not, how can the program be improved?
Okay. Now, the state FAIR plan is the last resort for insurance, but the FAIR plan wouldn't be the FAIR plan if the marketplace was fair. The marketplace is where we're discussing. The marketplace is where you go to buy your insurance in the beginning. If the marketplace is functioning accordingly, which means that the premiums meet the risk, my urban wildlife interface house meet the risk of what you're insuring, and the premium is low, then the FAIR plan wouldn't have so many individuals. Now, the FAIR plan under our current administration is for fire insurance only. So you had to buy these other products for water or any type of other catastrophe, and those products, even though you got in the FAIR plan, went to this expensive amount that you were paying that was way below the benefit you were getting for being in a FAIR plan. So it was another way of ripping off people who couldn't get a fair market because they decided to live, what we was talking about earlier, in a higher fire zone because they wanted to be away from the population. The wildfires have went up in the past 5 years. Now, what would I do to make sure that this is done correctly? The first thing I would do is call for an audit in all those individuals who's been denied unfairly in the marketplace, which means I asked 9 or 10 insurers to give me a rate, and they said I was uninsurable because I lived in a higher fire zone. That marketplace, these individuals who was denied, that insurance group should be audited. And that audit would be done by the state auditor, that's something I have control over, to make sure that these deniers and risk are equal, that they're not done haphazardly because I feel like there's going to be a fire or something that's coming, and so therefore I'm not going to do the risk. So you would bring immediate relief by bringing the state auditor into this, auditing those denial, auditing all of those charts to make sure that that was done correctly. And we talked about earlier how we would help these individuals with the CAL FIRE prevention and CAL FIRE resistant program by putting money into these programs, helping these individuals to get insurance. So I believe the FAIR plan has its loopholes, and I know the FAIR plan needs to be helped, and I have a solid solution to make sure that if there's been unfair denials, we have these charts audited to give not only rates, but fair rates for these individuals, and with the government surplus, we can also do things to help individuals who may be struggling get a good comprehensive coverage for their homes.
Wonderful. So now I want to give you a little freedom to perhaps highlight what will be your top 3 priorities in your first year as insurance commissioner.
Thank you again. My key issues that I have is I want to leverage the state budget and with this surplus and bring about this additional money to help support the people in the urban wildlife interface, which I outlined earlier on how I plan to make sure that these individuals get a fair market in that environment and they can live there with a good premium. The second thing I would like to do, I would like to stop that disparity that we spoke of early, which allows our seniors to be disproportionately paying more in their premiums than they would had they started here. There should be a discount for these individuals, and I believe that they get discounts at these IHOPs, at these restaurants, and I've been paying you all this money for all this time, and I've had no claims. There should be a discount. I would like to say that I would bring discounts or fairness to the young individuals who happen to live in zip codes that just because of their parents are there, they live in this area, they shouldn't be paying all this money. It's because they have this area, a geographic area, and their parents are their colleagues or their friends live in another area, but yet still we drive differently, but I'm still paying more. I think that's it. The last thing that you talked about earlier that I want to emphasize, I would increase the Department of Insurance enforcement arm, making sure we start dealing with this organized crime, which is leading to fraud and abuse in the insurance industry, which is definitely costing real dollars to consumers. Those are the key issues that I stand for, and if elected, I look forward to making those things come true.
Wonderful. And if I can ask you a bonus question, because it just popped in my mind, and I think it's a great question. Something you mentioned triggered my this question. So as you know, we have a silver wave coming. And insurance companies have a limited extent to which they cover nursing care, extended nursing care for elderly people, private insurance companies. And so usually the only recourse people may have is perhaps relying on government-funded nursing homes or in-home nursing care, which not everyone qualifies for. So what are some ideas you might have to try to ensure that our elderly population will be taken care of?
Okay. That's another excellent question, and it just not go. I wanted to say it does not extend to the elderly. We're saying individuals with disability or individuals that need 24-hour care are suffering in the marketplace now because they're being denied for care, and it's just a stroke of someone's opinion that I'm seeing. So they'll go to this facility called a long-term acute care, or they will go to a hospital and will be deemed that they can't walk or they can't function. And so now comes the point where, do I have a long-term acute care policy, which means do I have something that I put in motion to take care of these individuals for 24 hours, or am I going to pay out of pocket, which is what we're saying, and we're seeing that. That industry, again, needs to have an audit. And there needs to be a true criteria of how and why we are denying these individuals. Most of the catastrophes you see in that industry is not just the elderly, and it can be elderly, but it's a momentarily type of event. Had it been, we knew that this was happening from an early Alzheimer dimension, so we bought all these long-term products for safety, then we've been prepared. But it's an instantaneous product where the family didn't have enough time to recuperate, and now they're stuck with these bills. So that should be an area that also should be audited, and I think there should be a government oversight like you would do for disability claim, which these individuals, now it won't be their insured doctor or their private doctor, it would be a state physician that can determine if this is a dynamic which is not covered or should be covered. And if so, then Medi-Cal, which is the #1 provider for in-home or long-term care, then has to step in. So I think if it falls on the state, then the state should be the one to intervene quickly enough before the family is stuck with these bills that they cannot afford. And most of the time, one of the home workers or homemakers will either have to stop working to take care of their elderly parent, or they face with the most horrible thing that we've seen in my community is placing their loved one in a long-term care, which is heartbreaking in my community. So I believe that area too is one that needs to have some oversight with someone that understands the industry, and should have a government arm to make sure that there's not abuse in that section as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for that very thoughtful response. So I'd love to close out with perhaps who are 3 people, 3 figures, public or personal, who truly have inspired you in life and in the course you've taken.
I say one of the main persons that inspires me the most is my wife. Uh, my wife allows me to process a lot of data and believes in anything that I do. And with that, it keeps me motivated to move forward and bring about great things. Some of my great mentors would be Martin Luther King, who also did some great things to bring about help and humanity. And I'm a man that believes in God, so I have no qualms of saying that my spiritual energy keeps me focused and gives me the mindset to step out and try to make a difference.
Wonderful. Where can voters go to learn more about you or to reach out to you if they have any questions?
Okay. I can be reached at electdrallen2022.com. Electdrallen2022.com. That's my website. And it's Eugene Allen, EUGENEALLEN, at electdrallen2022.com. That's Eugene Allen at electdrallen2022.com. If you go there and if you call that number, I will respond to you. As the same, I will, when elected, you'll be able to call me and I will be able to call you back and we will discuss what it is that you're going through.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Allen,
you
for
for your
taking
time.
time out of your busy schedule to join us and to help inform your voters about your campaign.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, likewise. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.